Didn't
Happy
work.
Chanukah, good morning. Today is the second day of Chanukah. As you see the menorah burning bright here. We have a time limit to the shir. We'll finish the class before it goes down. There was once a fellow who was hosting a Chanukah party in his house, and he was displaying all of the antiques that he had. And he showed them a Kiddush cup. He said this is his great-grandfather's Kiddush cup, and it came to America in a very difficult journey. And there was another dreidel that he had there, and he said this dreidel was sold on Sotheby's for thousands of dollars. He barely managed to get it, and tradition has it that it was in the Inquisition, and little children played with this on their way from on the boat, trying to escape. And then he takes out a siddur, and he says, "This is a really old siddur. This was hidden in the camps during World War II. They would hide it, and they would take turns using it. They used it on Rosh Hashanah. They used it on Pesach. This is a very special siddur." And he's showing each one of the items in his house, how old they are and what the history behind it is, until one fellow raises his hand and he says, "Sir, this is all great, but how old are those donuts, Chanukah donuts?" We have, of course, many beautiful traditions and minhagim that are related to the Yontif of Chanukah. The most important is lighting the menorah, which we do every night. We start with one candle and we increase each night, adding another one until we have a full menorah lit. There is something that we say after we light the menorah, Hanerus Halalu, which implies, part of it is that we're not allowed to derive benefit from these candles. You can't use it for light, you can't use it for warmth, you can't have any type of benefit from the actual candles that are burning. It's part of the mitzvah. So much so that we light an additional candle called the shamish, even though it's the second day we do three, because one of them is the shamish, that we are using for in case we need light, or in case we're going to benefit from it, we're benefiting from the shamish and not from the actual candles. And the question is why? If the mitzvah is to light the menorah and the mitzvah is to light candles, and we want it to be bright, should you not use it? The whole point of the candle is to use it. Fine, we're doing it as a reminder, we're doing it as expressing our miracle, we're doing it as a symbol, but once the candle is lit, you should use it. It's like food. Certain foods you have to eat. Don't enjoy the food. On the contrary, you should have the matzah and enjoy the matzah. Part of the mitzvah is what you're doing here. But when it comes to the menorah, we say we don't. For example, by the way, is the idea of Shabbos, right? Shabbos candles. Why do you light Shabbos candles? It's to bring peace in the home. It's to bring warmth. It's to bring light, especially back in the day when they didn't have electricity. And at night, the only way to have light was with candles. And on Shabbos, you had the candles. And there's a discussion in halacha and Jewish law that it has to be on the table, next to the table, definitely in the same room, because you want to use the benefits from the candle. Comes Chanukah, and we say, have it, don't use it. Light it, don't have benefit from it. Why not? It's a Manashtana question about candles, right? Manashtana Neres Halalu we call it Leilis. Why are these Neres? Why are these candles different than everything else? And in order to understand this, we have to take a moment and really analyze how is Chanukah different than any other yontif that we had, and the history behind Chanukah, the story of Chanukah, how it's different than any other scenario that we had in our Jewish history. And of course, we have many, many holidays that we celebrate. As they summarize it in 8 words or so, they tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. There are many such days that we have. Chanukah, however, is different. The story of Chanukah was not one where they tried to annihilate the Jewish people. The goal of the Assyrian Greeks was not to kill us. On the contrary, Antiochus came across and he said, I love the land of Israel and I love Jerusalem and I'm going to be there for the Jewish people. He even named Yerushalayim Antiocha after his own name, Antiochus. He wanted to declare, he wanted to have part of it. He wasn't against it. What he was against was Jewish belief in a level where it doesn't make sense. You want to have a culture, you want to have something which is a nice tradition, by all means. But if you're going to do something which doesn't have any logic behind it, it's distinctly Jewish. It's distinctly because you are doing it because Hashem said so. I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense. For example, you want to learn Talmud or Mishnah because it's intellectually stimulating. You want to learn it because it's going to sharpen your mind. Be my guest. But don't learn it because it's Hashem's Torah. Don't do mitzvahs, for example, the Jewish calendar, or having a bris, certain things where logically they don't have a reason behind it. Even you could say Pesach, right? You want to eat matzah because your history tells you that you once were slaves and now you're not slaves anymore, and therefore you're celebrating that freedom. No problem. But the concept of Hashem said so, that's where his issue was. So it's not a situation where they want to kill us. It's a situation where they want to assimilate us. It's a spiritual war. We don't have this custom, but many communities have a custom. When they say Al Hanisim, they say Al HaMilchamais, and also for the wars that we had. What's the idea of saying about the wars? First of all, you should thank Hashem for winning the war. That's for having the battle. No one likes the war, for most people. Okay, they don't want to go to war. Your praise is the defeat. Your praise is the end of the war. The fact that you won, the fact that it finished. Not why are you praising Hashem that you had a war. And the answer is that we're thanking Hashem that we had the strength and the motivation to go to war. Mm-hmm. We weren't in danger. We could have said, look, they're letting us live fine. They're actually giving us probably equal opportunity to a great extent as everyone else. They're even priding themselves with Yerushalayim. Okay, so they don't let us celebrate certain mitzvahs. Okay, so they're not allowing us to have the Jewish pride the way we need to and have that uniqueness. But at least we're safe. They don't want to hurt us. Just 400 years or so after, before we got the Beis HaMikdash, and we're in good situation now. But yet we said, no, we need to go and fight that. We need to go and show them and not let anyone stop us from doing what we're supposed to. So the praising Hashem for the milchames is that we decided it's important enough to go to war. That we're going to stand up. And that's what the Hashmonaim did. That's what the Maccabees did. You basically have a difference between a body and a soul. And Chanukah was a war against the soul. What is the most spiritual, physical thing that we have? Again, maybe someone that's watching online wants to answer this as well. What is the most physical? What's the most spiritual, physical thing that we have? What out of all the physical? Let me rephrase this. Out of all the physical things that we have, what's the most spiritual one? Fire. Very good. What?
Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't mean mitzvahs. From physical objects that we have. Fire is the most. And one of the reasons or the ways that you see this is because fire never gets diminished. By giving away some of your fire, you don't lose any of that fire. If your child comes to you and he wants to have, $50, okay, and you have 100, you give him 50. You now have 50 left. You're missing 50. Maybe worth it. It may be a good idea, but you are missing that 50 that you gave away. Okay? If you have a cup of water and you want to share your water, you give some of the water, you lose the water that you have. Good reason, you should give it away. But you're giving it away and you're having less of it. When it comes to fire, by lighting another candle, you're not losing anything of your flame. Zero. Not only are you not losing, but now we have 2 candles. Now we have double what we had. And triple, as much as you want.
Intellectual property works the same.
Okay, but it's not something which you could really touch.
Sure, you can. You can enjoy it.
Well, you say that
he said intellectual
physical.
Property. Fine.
Yeah,
When it comes
physical.
when it comes to the fire, that has a spiritual element to it, which is very special. It's celebrating spiritual warfare. It's celebrating defending our spirituality. It's not like Pesach, where we were slaves and we got out. We got out, and now we have freedom, and we're safe, and we eat matzah to remember to make a seder, we keep Pesach. Or Purim. Haman tried to kill us, and miraculously the decree was turned around, and now we're going to have a meal, and we're going to celebrate. What?
I guess the reason for say Allah Milchamot is we started them.
Correct. It's thanking Hashem that we had the wherewithal and even the desire to say it's not good enough that we're okay physically. We need to be okay spiritually. And we have to have our Beis HaMikdash back. And we have to be able to serve Hashem properly. And we can't have any restrictions on our mitzvahs. So we went to war for that. There's a story happened about 80 years ago during the communist regime in Russia, former Soviet Union. There were a group of students that would sit and learn underground in Lubavitch Yeshiva. And one day they had a farbrengen with the previous Rebbe's personal secretary, Reb Chatzke Fagin, the Cheskel Fagin. He was later killed by the Nazis, but he was farbrengen with them. And he was talking about their spiritual state. You know, you're not davening properly, you're not learning properly, you're thinking about other stuff. You have to really get into your spiritual growth and what's going to be with you, and really berating them about their status in their spiritual growth and development. And they were listening, and they were sincere, and he was sincere, and they started to cry. And he saw, sitting around the table, some of these teenage boys are crying with sincerity, that they'd love to be better in their davening, in their learning. All of a sudden, someone came running in, that upstairs, there's a knocking on the door. And knocking on the door meant it's the KGB. So they all ran away. They had these drills that they've done in the past. They knew exactly what they're supposed to do. They all scattered in seconds. You came into the room, you couldn't find anyone. This one was under a table, that one was in a closet. This one got out through some kind of window. Everyone was gone. Okay, it turned out, Baruch Hashem, after a few minutes, that it was a false call, and everyone came back to the farbrengen. They come back to the farbrengen. They're sitting down, and they want to continue the farbrengen where he left off. And he said, it's an amazing thing I just noticed. When I was talking about spirituality, and your spiritual safety was at stake, you're not okay spiritually, everyone's crying. When it came to your physical safety, no one cried. You ran away, you did what you have to do to help yourself. He says, it's so interesting how the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, works. When there's a spiritual problem, he says, let's cry, let's feel bad, let's bemoan the situation, anything but to do something about it. And it feels good that I'm bothered that I'm not spiritually the way I would like to be. But when it comes physically, you don't think, oh my God, we're in a problem now, let's cry. No, you get up and you do something. And he continued to tell them that it's not about crying, it's about making true decisions, resolving to change, resolving to grow. Deciding to be better. That's a very interesting element. What happens when there's good in the spiritual sense, or you're threatened in the physical sense, of how people tend to react. So when it comes to fighting the Assyrian Greeks, when it comes to the Maccabees, the Hashmonaim, going against the Yevanim, it's the idea that we want spirituality to override the physical. And we celebrate that miracle through a candle, through fire, because that's spirituality in the physical sense. Obviously, not spiritual; it's physical, but it's the physical thing that has the most spirituality to it. Now, we don't want to use it because that would be more physical. We don't want to have any benefit from it because that's a physical benefit. We want to bring out the spiritual side of it. We have a separate shamish when you need to have benefit from it, or in case you'll have benefit from it. This is one of the reasons why Chanukah has, the Rebbe discusses, the idea of mahadrin mina mahadrin. You have many ways how you can fulfill a mitzvah. Okay, you go to the store before Sukkot, you want to buy an esrog, okay, and you have $18 esrogim, and you have $1,800 esrogim, and more, by the way, depending on the size, depending where it comes from, depending on the shape, depending how clean it is. You could be more mahadir, more careful, beautify the mitzvah even more, and get a better esrog. Matzah, you could buy matzah for $1, okay, or you could buy matzahs for $30, $40, $50, okay, a pound. The idea is that you have levels of doing the mitzvah. They're all kosher, but there's ways of doing it more. And you find these examples in many different things when it comes to Torah mitzvahs. Chanukah, the base mitzvah, the bare minimum, is that each household should have one candle lit on Chanukah every night to remember the miracle. Beautiful thing. With a candle that's lit, we remember the miracle. But that's not what we do. We, and I say we, I mean the entire Jewish community, whether it's Sephardic customs or it's Ashkenazic customs, whether it's Hasidic customs, or it's not, whatever custom they follow, all communities light a menorah each night. We start with one and we go to 2, 3, but we're constantly lighting, and not just one person in the household, but everyone in the household, all the men in the household light the menorah. We do mahadrin, mina mahadrin. Maybe play the dreidel on that table because it's going to disturb the thing. Okay. Very good. Dreidel is very appropriate, but so the idea is that we're careful about the mitzvah. We do a mahadrin mina mahadrin the best way possible. Why? Because it's a spiritual thing. The Yontif is about spirituality. It's thanking Hashem for winning Biruchnius. So we celebrate it in the greatest way possible. Reb Asher Sasankin was a chassid who was sent to Siberia for his crimes of spreading Yiddishkeit, not just for himself and his family, but also for others in the former Soviet Union. And when he was in Siberia, on one of these gulags or camps, he met another Yid over there. His name, I have his name here somewhere. Yeah, Nachman Roseman. And this Nachman Roseman was a Yid that was in Siberia as well with him, for other reasons, not for his spreading Yiddishkeit, but it was not hard to get locked up in Russia. And while he was there, his Jewish spark was awakened, and he started becoming more involved in Yiddishkeit from all places in Siberia. And they would learn a little bit, they would talk, they would try to do mitzvahs what they could. And one day, this Nachman comes over to Reb Asher and he says, "No, what's going to be with Chanukah?" He says, "Chanukah, what's going to be? It's going to be Chanukah." He says, "How are we going to light the menorah?" He says, "Menorah, we're in Siberia. We're not in some shul in Moscow. You can't, there's no such thing." So he says, No. We got to do it. Let me figure out a way. So for weeks to come, he would save a portion of whatever meager meal they had. He would save it and exchange it with someone else in the camp. He would give it to him. And as a result, he crafted for him a menorah. Somehow, I don't know if it was what it was made out of. He put together some kind of makeshift menorah that looked like a menorah. He made it. And it came the first night of Chanukah. And Reb Asher and Reb Nachman together, they went and they lit a menorah. The wicks probably came from a piece of clothing, and maybe they got some margarine somewhere. I'm not sure how they got the oil, but they lit a menorah. Now, it was very dangerous. First of all, you can't light candles in the camp. Number two, it's a menorah. And what are you going to do? But they did it, completely absorbed by their... Okay, this went on the first night, second night, third night. The fifth night, there's a surprise roll call. And the officer storms in, and everyone has to stand next to their beds or whatever. And he walks in, he looks around the whole place, and finally in the corner he sees a menorah. It's on the floor, tiny little. He looks and he says, "Piat? 5?" And the usher says, he nods his head, 5. He said the officer turned around, left, and never came back. He never saw him again. He said he thinks that Eliyahu Hanavi that came to celebrate Chanukah with him, but perhaps there was a Jewish spark, another Jewish spark that was awakened. The idea is that Chanukah is a celebration of spirituality. It's a celebration of light. We don't enjoy the candles in the sense of it's warm or it's illuminating. We enjoy the fact that it's a mitzvah, that it's spiritual, and we're thanking Hashem that we had the desire and the strength to fight for our spiritual freedom, to stand up for what's right. We do this with the Syrian Greeks. We did it back then, and today we do it internally also. There's a spiritual side of us and a material side. The material wants one thing, and the spiritual side feels threatened, and it also wants to do something. And sometimes it's a fight inside of us, and we have to want that the spiritual side, the Yetzer Tov, should win. Have a happy Chanukah. Merry dreidel.
Tremendous stories, yes, just last.
Chanukah.